For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kevlu and Seasons of Sandbox.
What's going on, Since the Sandbox fans? We are back.
Yes, sir.
It is the most wonderful time of the year. No, not Christmas, not Hanukkah. Shout out Zesty. But the NBA playoffs. The NBA playoffs just wrapped up round one, going into round two, and I'm smiling because for once, Phoenix Suns Nation can stand up and proudly say,
The Valley ain't so bad.
Shout out the Valley. Shout out the Phoenix Suns. Huge round one win against the Clippers, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
The Lakers.
Yes, sir.
How you guys feeling about the playoffs so
Yes,
far?
it is the Lakers, so nice correction, Lou. And that's where we want to start things off. So, what do you guys make of the Lakers' early exit? Like, does that speak more on the Phoenix Suns? Or does that go to show, the team that Lakers really were? Does a lot of that fault go on LeBron, AD, injuries? How are we feeling about that?
I just think AD's injury just showed they're not a good basketball team. LeBron's the only viable player on the team, and if you're really gonna ask Alex Caruso and KCP to step up as number twos, then your team's just flawed. There are non-playoff teams with more scorers than them. Yeah. So I don't know. It says a little bit about both, but what is LeBron supposed to do? Beat a playoff team by himself?
No,
the dude's 38. Come on.
Now, this was the matchup we were expecting, the Lakers to draw with the Jazz. So now with the Suns going in, instead of the Lakers, how do we think that shakes up, the next part of the NBA playoffs?
Kevin, I'm going to throw it to you first because I'm still undecided.
As far as the Phoenix series?
Yeah.
Because they're playing Denver, right?
Yes.
No, Denver?
Yeah, they're playing Denver.
Okay.
Yeah. And I got them winning in 7. I got Phoenix winning in 7. I think Jokic is playing out of his mind, and I do still think the Nuggets are still a good team without Jamal Murray, not a great team. And I do think the series will go 7, but I think with just all the star power that Phoenix has and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, a rising star in DeAndre Ayton, I do think they'll be able to just hold them out in the Game 7. But I do think it'll be a tough series. It's not going to be an easy series by any means. Hopefully, if D-Book can keep playing how he's playing, Chris Paul can get a little bit healthier. I see Phoenix going to the Western Conference Finals.
We can, but, I also think, Denver can make, a finals push. We were talking about, drawing, these round 2 NBA matchups, and we were saying, teams like the Jazz that got through, and they just kind of slid through, honestly, because we knew Memphis wasn't going to be too much of a threat. Yeah. But, it's tough because you obviously view Denver less because there's no Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, I also feel like they're exceeding what they're supposed to be doing right now without him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's they really might be still one of the better options as contenders, and it's the Clippers are phonies,
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think I am putting more of my chips, in Denver than Phoenix or maybe even the Clippers. Jazz might really find the easiest trip out of the West this year.
Probably. I'll say Denver in 7, and then I'll say the Clippers in 7 as well.
Ooh.
And then I'll take the Clippers over Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got Utah in 6, and I got Phoenix in 7. We'll talk about the Western Conference matchup when we get there. I don't want to talk too early. Got to see how teams play in the second round, but I definitely am expecting a Utah-Phoenix Western Conference Finals, which for me, as a huge Devin Booker fan, you guys know, will be the most exciting thing. Phoenix hasn't made it to a conference final since Nash has been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
no, you're right.
it's crazy.
But Lou, you just mentioned the Clippers. In with LA Lakers not being involved, do you think that the as far as a contender and a finals favorite, do you think by default the Clippers are still right up there? I know the East is still very heavy with all the finals favorites, but there's got to be a favorite from the West.
Yeah, I'll take the Clippers, but again, they're just playing for runner-up.
Yeah.
Everyone in the West is playing for runner-up.
Yeah, it's funny because, as much as we say, the Western Conference, and I'm sure we can all agree the Western Conference playoffs have not been the funnest to watch. Awful to watch. But at the same time, any 4 of these teams can make it to the finals just because there's no really juggernaut. If Jamal Murray was healthy, then I'd say, okay, Denver's the juggernaut. Obviously, the Lakers are out. the Clippers are frauds. So there's really no team, and then Utah, we've been talking about Utah all year, how we're not sure about if they're an actual championship team or not. So realistically, the West is wide open right now. As bad as, watching it may have been, it's still wide open right now. More wide open than I think, the East is. But the East is wide open too, so it's going to be tough.
If you want to be honest, though, like I think the whole thing is kind of wide open. Yeah, like we just talked about, having favorites, but like we said, LeBron's not in there. Harden with the Nets is banged up, so that's not securing, 3 stars there. Obviously, them having KD is still like a huge thing, but
Yeah.
I feel like we just always valued, like, let's just look at last year. It was like Lakers and Clippers until the end, and that's what it ended up being. And now it's like all these scenarios are playing out differently than we all expected, and all these moving pieces. Like, let's look on the East, for example. Joel Embiid, he's got a torn meniscus. Like, that could significantly affect everybody viewed thought process on a finals contender or, them being a favorite because of that injury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just so deterring to see, like, Brooklyn beat the Bucks. Not handily, but it wasn't, like, down to the wire without Harden. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, how, like, what is it going to take to beat them? And I just think they're going to have to beat themselves. Like, they're going to have to not play defense. Yeah, I don't know. I think the East is interesting only because there's a chance we see an upset, but in the West there are no upsets.
Right, everyone's kind of even.
I think this Nets-Bucks series could be the best series in a long time. I think it's going to go at least six. And I do think, Giannis will have some big games, but it's like, if the Bucks fall out short, what do we consider the Bucks going forward? You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Just contenders.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's so hard.
Yeah, so I actually, crazy, but I have the Bucks winning in 7. I think they'll make the adjustments, and I know the Nets did play without Harden, but like you said, Lou, there's going to be a point in time where one of those 3, it's going to become an issue. You know what I mean? Either Kyrie's going to do something that's going to become an issue. Harden's going to go to another strip club to eat hot wings. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. But no, the thing about the Nets is, like, you can't be that bad at defense, and like you can only get you so far. Like, that good of an offense can only get you so far. You know what I mean? And even if it is the Eastern Conference Finals, I just think Philly overpowers them on the defensive end of the floor. But to get into the Philly series, that'll be over in 6. I don't know why everyone's bugging. They lost the first game. It'll be over in 6. All right. I think what Philly needs to do is what the Lakers did with Steph Curry in the play-in game. Let Trae Young get his 40 points and literally just shut down everyone else, because they did not do that the other day. Bogdanovich went off. John Collins was going off. Like, just focus on let Trae Young's going to get his 30, 40, whatever he needs. Just make sure everyone else gets under, 20.
It's just tough, man. If Embiid's hurt, I think Atlanta takes it. But then again,
but Embiid didn't even. But like Embiid, like, I know he's hurt, but he really he didn't look like he was hurt. Like yesterday when he was playing, like he went off. You know what I mean? But again, one little tweak in that, and you go from a slightly torn meniscus to a completely torn meniscus. So we'll have to see.
I don't know. I'd be awful if Atlanta wins, just because like then we know who's going to the finals for sure.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what a sin.
Yeah, I know.
I think
that's poor television right there.
Yeah, that'll get the lowest ratings of an Eastern Conference Finals ever.
I'm not even going to lie. I think if Atlanta wins, that would probably be the biggest upset of the entire playoffs.
It might be the biggest upset in the playoffs in 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be.
So it's like the Grizzlies upset the Spurs in round 1.
Yeah. That was back in the day with Zebo.
But that just goes to show you, though, that outside of Embiid, Tobias Harris, I don't think, is a long-term option. Ben Simmons, without developing some sort of more consistent scoring, might not be a long-term option. You know what I mean? And then it kind of gets me to ask this question, now that we see that he just walked out of the playoffs. What happens with Dame? Where does he go from here? We know that he's always been preaching, the loyalty with the Trailblazers. But imagine, replacing a Ben Simmons with a Dame Lillard, or the Celtics making a push with our new, franchise pretty much going forward. Really would be interesting. I'm sure, with them firing their head coach, Dame might be a little more open to things too. But I also think that it's gonna cost a whole lot.
Yeah, it's just tough. I think the Knicks are a good option too, just because they're young and have assets. But it's if you're Dame Lillard, it's what are you like complaining about, dude? You have C.J. McCollum, you have Nurkic, who played healthy, you have Whiteside, you have a solid bench, and Terry Stotts wasn't a bad coach. Like,
You got Melo.
yeah, I don't really count that. But what more do you need? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get you past the first round. Like, how much can we give you? And, like, call you a superstar if, like, you're struggling to get past a hurt Denver team in the first round. Like, it can't just always fall on everybody else. Like, he is great. But, like, is it really going to be that much better if you go to the Knicks?
Yeah.
Or another team? Like,
Yeah.
it just, like, dude, like, take some responsibility, bro. Like, Terry Stotts isn't
Dame's Dame's in a tough situation because Dame's, I feel like, Dame's on a team where he's on one of the best teams that isn't considered a super team. You know what I mean? So if he doesn't want to get the narrative of joining, like how KD did, like joining a powerhouse, then like Lou said, he's not going to find better options than Portland. Like you can go to New York and you might make the playoffs, but realistically, like you and Julius Randle isn't going to win an East with the Brooklyn Nets, with the Philly 76ers, with the Milwaukee Bucks. Like it's just not going to happen. So either convince your organization to go out and get more pieces. I shouldn't even say replace pieces, but just get more pieces because they don't have much bench depth. They could probably use another sharpshooter in their starting lineup, but it's
After
tough.
that trade,
and the thing, like that's what's so tough about like Ben Simmons too is like the dude can't shoot. I mean, I think the biggest flaw to his game is the free throw shooting because teams have made it clear that they're gonna foul him and that he can't knock down free throw shots. But the other thing about Ben Simmons is like when it comes to the point guard position, he does so many things that so many other point guards can't do that are so valuable on the court. Like, he's the best point defender in the league. He's the best rebounding point guard in the league. He's the strongest point guard in the league. He's the best, probably, finisher in the league as far as point guard. So it's tough. I mean, Philly has to come to their senses and say, all right, do we want a guy like Dame Lillard that's going to give us 30 a night and maybe, 7-8 assists, or do we want a guy like Ben Simmons that's going to lock down the team's best player, get you 9 rebounds, 9 assists, and like 15 points?
So my whole
it's a question
thing
they
is,
gotta ask themselves.
My whole thing is like if you take Ben Simmons out of that scenario and put in Russell Westbrook, how much better worse does that change the scenario?
Worse.
You know what I mean?
Way worse.
Yeah, they are worse. I think they're worse.
And my other
Not like he can shoot.
Because he's more disciplined. Ben Simmons is more disciplined than Russell Westbrook is.
my other thing is how do we view a team like the Trailblazers with Dame on it right now compared to Wizards, who I would say the Wizards probably have more star power than Portland does, but I definitely don't think it's a better team.
I see. I think the Portland Trailblazers' best shot is you throw in a first-round pick and a second, and then you go McCollum for Bradley Beal. Like, you know what I mean? He's at least like McCollum's an all-star, but Bradley Beal is a star. Then you give Dame another star who can knock down shots more consistently, who is a one on a team.
Probably a better defender than McCollum too.
And it's like then you just have to roll the dice there and be like, listen, dude, you have 2 stars on the team. Nurkic is a fringe all-star. And then they don't have, like, a bad rest of the team. Like, it's not awful.
Yeah.
Here's a hot take.
Let's hear it.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah,
And I know it would be tough because this guy also handles the ball. But how would we feel if they were able to pull it off about Dame going to a team like the Mavericks? Him and Luka in the backcourt.
It wouldn't be horrible, but I just think that they would have to still replace Porzingis.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I don't think Porzingis is
But I think
the
if you get a
option
guy
there.
like Dame, you don't gotta go out and get a superstar big. Like you don't need like if you keep as is and you get rid of Porzingis, you have to go out and get someone that's gonna be that second star. Whereas if you go out and get Dame, the Mavericks can go out and get a guy that's just a solid measly like 12-8, 14-10 type of guy. You know what I mean?
That's kind of how I feel about like Ben Simmons though. It's like the stuff that you're saying that he's great at as far as like the point guard position. If you had a point guard that had different attributes, you can get his strengths from other positions where you should, like most likely like a small forward. You know what I'm saying? So that's my whole thing.
Yeah, it's tough. It's
so
tough
hard,
because
yeah.
it goes by the team because like Philly's built around that whole like big lineup. Like we're gonna defend you, we're gonna post you up. Whereas like teams like Portland, I feel like are more finesse. Like Dame's gonna cross you up, step back, and hit a 3 in your face. So it's tough.
Yeah.
No, definitely. But guys, that's gonna wrap things up for our YouTube NBA talk. Round 1 reactions and round 2 expectations. We're definitely going to stay updated with all things in the NBA. Make sure you guys go to our podcast, give us that 5 stars, and check out all of our recent episodes. We're going through our record predictions throughout the NFL. And we went through the North and the South, the East and the West coming up next. Make sure to tune into the rest of our YouTube content coming this week. We have NFL players to make the biggest jump. Put that like, subscribe, and notification bell on with the 5 stars. Peace out.
For all things great iron and hard top, it's Kevlar and seasons of Sandbox.